Part 16. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 152. The black-robed old man who was knocked away by the fat cat turned his head to look at it, but finally ignored it and moved away. He knew that the black tiger had made great contributions, and he was not interested in arguing with a demon. Okay, I know you have made great contributions this time. I will definitely reward you after the matter is over. Xuanhuan smiled immediately when he saw the fat cat's actions. Fat pouted slightly. Then it looked at Xuanhuan, who was not on guard against it at all, and a strange color flashed in its eyes, and it waited quietly. It was waiting for Chen Ronghuo's order. Whoosh! When Dai Zhenzi was fighting with the demon puppet, Wang Gu and Shen Luyang in Tongluo town avoided the aftermath of their battle and rushed straight to Xuanhuan and his group. Wang Gu was a corpse sorcerer, not a warrior. But when he stepped on the ground with his feet, it seemed that there was something underground, performing the earth escape technique and carrying him. His speed was not inferior to Shen Luyang at all. The one carrying him was a zombie that he had raised and could escape into the earth. Buzz! Before they could rush to Xuanhuan, Xuanhuan aimed at Dai Zhenzi and shot the crossbow in his hand without any hesitation. The 3 crossbow arrows on Xuanhuan's crossbow were all dark red, as if stained with blood that could not be washed off. After one of the arrows was shot out, it immediately came with a whistling sound, as fast as a meteor, and approached Dai Zhenzi in an instant. Dai Zhenzi, who was entangled with the demon puppet, suddenly felt a burst of panic. He caught a glimpse of the arrow in his eyes, and when his hair stood on end, he suddenly jumped up, stepped his feet in the air, and reached the sky hundreds of meters high in a few steps. He wanted to avoid the arrow. But at this time, the arrow turned in the air and aimed at him again. The tail of the arrow exploded with a bang, and after emitting a ball of black light, it accelerated for the second time, and with a puff, it hit Dai Zhenzi's chest and penetrated him completely. This arrow was blessed with a strange secret method. After piercing Dai Zhenzi's chest, a trace of vicious energy immediately surged out of it and spread to Dai Zhenzi's whole body. Even though Dai Zhenzi was a third-level warrior, after being hit by this arrow, everything in front of him quickly became trance. He was the lord of an important town, a viscount, and a powerful third-level cultivator. If you don't count the descendants of Changsun Zhengzin. There are only 13 important towns and 13 viscounts in the entire White Mist Island. This time he came to Black Tiger Town with full confidence. He even fantasized that if he could get a few powerful relics of the Moli family from Black Tiger Town, would it be possible to become the final winner in this White Mist Island chaos and be promoted to Earl? But he calculated everything, but he didn't expect that he would die here. Died here for no apparent reason. Just as his eyes were hazy and everything in his eyes was doubled, his body fell backwards under the influence of the crossbow arrow, but he suddenly saw several familiar figures in a ruined building below. These familiar figures were Chen Ronghuo and his group. It was them. When Dai Zhenzi saw Chen Ronghuo and his group, his fists tightened immediately, and he felt that his exposure this time must be related to Chen Ronghuo and his group. But his fists just tightened, and then loosened again. With his consciousness, it completely disappeared into nothingness. Dai Zhenzi, dead. Seeing Dai Zhenzi falling to the distance in mid-air, Chen Ronghuo still carefully identified his attributes. When he identified that Dai Zhenzi was really dead, he breathed a sigh of relief. The destructive power of a third-level cultivator can be seen from the battle between Dai Zhenzi and the demon puppet. A strong man of this level, even if he only has his own strength left, will be killed directly if he is caught off guard. Boom! Dai Zhenzi died, and the third-level magic puppet immediately returned quickly. After a few flashes, it caught up with Shen Luyang and Wang Gu, who had not yet rushed to Xuanhuan, like a ghost. Xuanhuan, I am willing. Feeling the strong pressure emanating from the magic puppet, Shen Luyang immediately showed a begging look to Xuanhuan in fear. But Xuejun did not show any expression when he heard Shen Luyang's request. Boom! The next moment, Shen Luyang spit out a mouthful of blood when the magic puppet punched out, and the whole person flew out 70 or 80 meters away, falling to the ground like a broken sack, deader than dead. If he had not been praying and escaping, he might have been able to withstand a few moves under the attack of the magic puppet. But Shen Luyang died. Wangu gritted his teeth and wanted to turn around and escape. But the demon puppet flashed again and came to his side. With two big hands, he was crushed on the spot in fear. After Wangu died, the zombies that were originally performing the earth escape technique underground also died in an instant under the contract and could no longer move. Demon puppet, also known as human puppet, a third-level initial puppet. It was made by the Moli family from the living bodies of third-level practitioners. After the energy is exhausted, it can absorb spiritual energy to recover by itself. But the recovery speed is 10 times slower than that of a normal third-level practitioner. Note, the cultivator cannot die during the process of being refined into a demon puppet. Once he dies, the refining will fail. So the cultivator will use life-saving objects to hang on to his life during the process of being refined into a demon puppet. But in the process of being sacrificed into a demon puppet, the cultivator will also suffer great torture. Damn things, all damned. In the distance, seeing Dai Genzi and the other two all died in a short time, Xuejun put the crossbow into the storage ring and immediately waved his hand angrily, as if he still didn't get rid of his hatred. The movement just now was too loud, and it won't take long for a strong man to come to investigate. It can be imagined that once someone finds out that Dai Genzi, the lord of an important town, died in his own territory, it will cause a great shock. At that time, as long as you carefully investigate, you can probably find out through clues that Xuejun is a member of the former Moli family. At this time, Zhenkinzan looked at the ruined territory nearby and said, "Lord, we should not stay here for long. We should not delay any longer. Let's meow." Just when Zhenkinzan was halfway through his words, Xuejun's attention was also attracted by him. The fat cat next to Xuejun suddenly cried out strangely. Then it took advantage of the magic puppet in the distance to collect Dai Genzi's body and rushed forward. After this rush, Xuejun was knocked to the ground without any defense. After knocking Xuejun down, the fat cat opened its mouth and bit his neck, then took him and turned into a black afterimage, quickly distanced itself from Zhenkinzan and others. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 153. Black Tiger. The fat cat suddenly knocked Xuejun down, grabbed Xuejun's neck, and quickly fled, shocking Zhenkinzan and others. No one expected that the loyal black tiger beast would suddenly go crazy and attack Xuejun. Xuejun, whose neck was pierced by the sharp teeth of the fat cat, showed an unbelievable look when his consciousness was fading. He looked at the fat cat and wanted to speak, but he couldn't say a word due to the severe pain. He could only stare at the fat cat. "Stare at me?" The fat cat looked at Xuejun's eyes, and in a fierce manner, it swung its neck and threw Xuejun out. Then, before Xuejun landed, it waved its claws and immediately sent out 3 green wind blades, which separated Xuejun in the air. If it weren't for Xuejun, it might still be sleeping in Greenwater Baytown. It might still be comfortably showered with the colorful spiritual rain. How could it become like this now? How could he come here? Rolling. Xuejun's head rolled to the ground. After rolling for a few times, he still stared at the fat cat with his eyes wide open. At this time, he was still not dead yet, and there was still a trace of consciousness left. Meow. Seeing Xuejun like this, the fat cat cried out. It suddenly thought that it seemed a bit cruel to do this. It glanced at Chen Ronghuo, and when it saw that Chen Ronghuo didn't seem to blame itself, it was relieved. Then it moved in its heart and suddenly turned into its original appearance. "You are not, you are that cat. Seeing the fat cat's transformation, Xuejun's pupils shrank suddenly, and then he uttered a few unclear sentences, and there was no trace of consciousness left. But even to death, his eyes were still wide open. Seeing that Xuejun still didn't close his eyes, the fat cat thought about it, suddenly stepped forward, stretched out his claws and pulled, and turned Xuejun's head upside down on the ground. In the process, there was no blood on its body. After doing all this, it immediately ran to the other parts of Xuejun's body with its eyes shining, stretched out its claws and picked up the storage ring on Xuejun's hand. It knew that all of Xuejun's treasures were hidden in it. And it was also very familiar with the storage ring. Because Chen Ronghuo had one. But Chen Ronghuo's storage ring from the Black Snake, after so long, Chen Ronghuo and Fat Cat attacked the seal together, but they couldn't unlock it. Even if Chen Ronghuo used the power of his left hand, it was still the same. Through the identification of the ancient book, Chen Ronghuo knew that it was probably because the level of the storage ring was too high. After taking off Xuejun's storage ring, Fat Cat flashed and hid behind Chen Ronghuo and the others who had already rushed to his side. Zhenkinzan, the old man in black robe, and the two second-level early practitioners in the distance were all furious when they saw this scene. At this time, they didn't know that the scene in front of them was all the work of Chen Ronghuo and his group. Whether they were them or the lord of Tongluo town, Dai Zhenzi, they were all fooled by Chen Ronghuo and were all under Chen Ronghuo's calculations. When these people reacted, Chen Ronghuo also identified their attributes. Lu Man, late stage 2 warrior. Xiao Chang, Cai Wu, early stage 2. Identity, Demon Li family death warrior. Practice method, Ghost Shadow skill. Martial arts, Ghost Shadow step, Ghost hand, Ghost strike. After identifying the three people, he focused his attention on Zhenkinzan, who was in white robe and white hair. He had long known from Fat Cat that this person's strength was second to none in Black Tiger Town. Zhenkinzan, Heart Array Warlock, late stage 2. Warlock qualification, 4. Talent, born with Array Heart, one of the ways of Array, with extremely strong comprehension, can form an array in an instant. Strongest ability, for Ding sealing you an array. His ancestor was a close friend of the ancestor of the Moli family. When the Moli family was in charge of Beiwu Island, he swore that his descendants would always assist the Moli family in power. Trouble. After identifying the attributes of these people, Chen Ronghuo immediately said in his heart, and then after he nodded slightly, Huanglin and Ho San beside him rushed out. These people can't stay. Especially after Fat Cat exposed his identity. Keeping these people will definitely pose a great threat to Greenwater Bay Town in the future. Not to mention anything else, just these people leaking the fact that they got the Moli relic will have a great impact on him. Boom boom boom. Soon, the battle started again. Huanglin used strange body skills to tangle with the black-robed old man in the late second stage. And not long after, he suppressed the old man even though his cultivation was one level weaker than that of the old man. And Ho San faced Zhenkinzan. As for the remaining two Moli family warriors, they rushed towards Chen Ronghuo together. Boom. After seeing that Huanglin and Ho San were temporarily safe, Chen Ronghuo waved his hand and suddenly summoned a black and red flame tornado, sweeping towards the two Moli family warriors who had rushed to him. The blazing natural disaster flames turned into a dragon shape. It was more than 10 meters long. It was like a demon dragon that broke free from its shackles and rushed out of hell, roaring and raging wildly. Ah! After being hit by the calamity flame transformed into a demon dragon, the two second-level warriors howled miserably, and then in just a moment, they were completely devoured by the calamity flame, turning into two illusory black and red skulls, which were taken into Chen Ronghuo's body. What a waste! After killing the two men, Chen Ronghuo shook his head. If he wanted to end the battle quickly, he had to use the calamity flame. The Calamity Flame had a crushing advantage over cultivators whose levels were lower than his. He had just asked Huanglin and Hosan to go find the black-robed old man and Zhenkinzan respectively, because in this way, the remaining 2 second-level early-stage warriors would most likely come back to cause trouble for him. When he faced these 2 people, he could take advantage of the fact that they didn't know his details, and when they got close to him, he could kill them with one strike. However, once he used the Calamity Flame, he would definitely lose everything except the 2 black and red skulls. With these thoughts in mind, after killing 2 people, Chen Ronghuo turned his eyes and fell on Hosan and Zhenkinzan, who was fighting with him. Around Zhenkinzan, rays of light flashed. Divided into 4 colors, yellow, blue, green, and red, representing earth, water, wind, and fire. These 4 colors of light condensed into 4 large tripods in the flashing, hanging in front of Zhenkinzan. As long as Hosan rushed over, Zhenkinzan stretched out his hand and pointed forward, and any large tripod would be smashed towards Hosan fiercely. At this time, Hosan had transformed into a height of 3 meters. Like a ferocious black demon ape, the fighting spirit rose. A punch was thrown, and the power was unknown. But even so, he could only parry and could not resist the 4 large tripods condensed by Zhenkinzan. Even a moment later, he was accidentally trapped in the middle by Zhenkinzan with 4 large tripods. Seeing this scene, Chen Ronghuo immediately stepped forward and prepared to deal with Zhenkinzan together with Hosan. At the same time, he did not forget to greet Fat Cat. Just as he greeted Fat Cat, he suddenly heard the sound of a lot of things falling to the ground behind him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 154. Hearing the noise, Chen Ronghuo turned his head suddenly. Then he saw that in a short time, Fat Cat had fiddled with something. He actually opened Shuejun's storage ring and poured out a lot of things inside. Among this pile of things, the most conspicuous ones were 5 puppets that looked similar to the previous magic puppet. In addition, there were a lot of messy things. After this pile of things suddenly appeared in front of him, Fat Cat was also startled. It jumped up more than 10 meters high. After landing, it still stared at the pile of things nervously with its eyes wide open. Especially staring at the magic puppets, not daring to move. How could it not remember the power displayed by the magic puppet controlled by Xuejun before? Seeing Fat Cat like this, even in such an occasion, Chen Ronghuo was speechless. And at this moment, after observing for a few more times, Fat Cat found that these magic puppets were all for show. It seems that none of them can move. It blinked, then suddenly mustered up the courage, quickly ran to the demon puppets, stretched out its little claws, and slapped one of the demon puppets. It used a lot of strength in this slap. It directly slapped the demon puppet more than 10 meters away, and it fell to the ground with a plop. Stop! At this moment, Zhenkinzan, who was not so angry when Fat Cat killed Xuejun, roared with red eyes after seeing Fat Cat's actions. Hearing Zhenkinzan's roar, Chen Ronghuo was a little surprised. Thinking of the information he got when he identified the demon puppet before, he immediately identified the demon puppet that was slapped by Fat Cat. Demon puppet. Strength level, 2nd level. This is a demon puppet made from the body of Zhenkinzan's father. The ancestors of the Zhen family and the ancestors of the Mole family are life and death friends. The ancestors of the Zhen family once swore that the descendants would always assist the Mole family in managing Beiwu Island. But 700 years ago, the 3rd generation of the White Mist Island ruler of the Mole family had a conflict with the head of the Zhen family and secretly refined him into a demon puppet. In the process of refining the head of the Zhen family into a demon puppet, the ruler of the Mole family discovered that the blood of the Zhen family was extremely special. Refining a demon puppet with the body of a Gen family member not only has a very high success rate, but also the strength that can be preserved after being refined into a demon puppet is also better than the demon puppets made by ordinary practitioners. Even after being refined into a demon, the soul of the Gen family will always exist and will not be annihilated, but will always be in endless torture. After discovering this secret, the third generation of the Mole family used means to tell other members of the Gen family that he had found a way to make the Gen family immortal. That is to refine the Gen family into a demon puppet when the lifespan of the Gen family is approaching. Because of the desire for immortality. And the soul of the head of the Gen family generation did exist after being refined into a demon puppet. His soul was controlled by the third generation leader of the Mole family through secret techniques, and appeared in front of people, confirming this statement. So after that, most people in the Gen family, before their lifespans were about to end, would actively seek out people from the Mole family to refine them into demon puppets. Demon puppet status, resurrection. The seventh generation heir of the Gen family was a genius. After he was seriously injured and dying, he had to seek people from the Mole family to refine him into a demon puppet, and then he discovered the conspiracy of the Mole family. So he secretly studied the secret method for hundreds of years, trying to crack the magic puppet technique and escape from the sea of suffering, until not long ago, he finally succeeded. He even found a way to pass on the secret technique he had studied to the other demon puppets refined by the people of the Gen family. But once this secret technique is used, it will die in a short time, and the demon puppet itself will also collapse, so all the ancestors of the Gen family are waiting. Waiting to tell their descendants about the conspiracy of the Mole family, and then use the secret technique to get rid of it. Resurrection. This demon puppet is reviving, and wants to tell the truth to Zhenkinzan. After using the ancient book to identify the information of the demon puppet in front of him, Chen Ronghuo's pupils shrank immediately. He did not expect that such a big secret was hidden in these demon puppets. He turned his eyes and identified the remaining demon puppets one by one. Finally, it was found that among the 5 demon puppets, there were 3 second-level demon puppets, the same as the demon puppets refined by Zhenkinzan's father. In addition, there was another demon puppet, which was a third-level demon puppet. That third-level demon puppet was the 7th-generation patriarch of the Gen family. Suddenly, Chen Ronghuo's heart moved, and he suddenly stepped forward and put his left hand on the third-level demon puppet. He wanted to try to find some attributes from this demon puppet and try to prevent it from resurrecting. The value of the third-level demon puppet can be imagined. Once this demon puppet is resurrected, it will die in a short time. This is definitely a huge loss for him. However, after Chen Ronghuo put his left hand on the demon puppet, he touched it again and again, but he couldn't find any attributes. Just when he was anxious, he suddenly saw the flashing red lines in the demon puppet's eyes suddenly became vigorous. Damn it! Chen Ronghuo cursed inwardly. He knew that this demon puppet and other demon puppets might be resurrected soon. When these demon puppets are resurrected, his loss will be really too great. Thinking of this, his mind turned rapidly, and he suddenly abandoned the magic puppet and moved his body quickly. When everyone was confused, he stretched out his left hand in a flash and slapped all the magic puppets. Asshole! Zhenkinzan, who was far away, saw this scene and thought that Chen Ronghuo was blaspheming his father and ancestors, and he was furious. In his rage, he pointed his hand, and the 4 large tripods in front of him hit Xuanhuan one after another while spinning rapidly. He knocked Xuanhuan dozens of meters away on the spot. Boom! Then he was carried by the 4 large tripods and rushed towards Chen Ronghuo quickly. Xuanhuan got up from the ground, his eyes flashed with fierce light, and his fighting spirit soared. Xuanhuan, let him come. But just as he was about to rush up to intercept Zhenkinzan, he heard Chen Ronghuo's order. What should the leader do? Xuanhuan took a deep breath and forced himself to suppress his fighting spirit. Although he did not intercept Zhenkinzan, he still quickly returned to Chen Ronghuo and protected Chen Ronghuo behind him. Small Zhen. Just when Zhen Qinzan approached with a fierce look in his eyes, a weak voice suddenly rang out from one of the 5 magic puppets. Small Zhen? Hearing this familiar voice, the furious Zhen Qinzan suddenly woke up. He turned his head, and then he saw that the magic puppet transformed by his father slowly climbed up from the ground. No. Instead, all the magic puppets transformed by their ancestors of the Zhen family who had just been photographed by Chen Ronghuo, at this moment, all climbed up from the ground. These attributes, especially those related to background settings, are really too difficult to write, so the updates have been slow in the past few days, but don't worry, all the old ones will be made up, and if they can't be made up, just wait for me to dress up as a woman. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 155. Whoosh. When the demon puppets got up from the ground one by one, Fat Cat suddenly jumped up and jumped again. This time, he jumped tens of meters high. Meow. After landing, it rushed directly to Chen Ronghuo. These things were clearly dead just now. Why did everything suddenly come to life? At this moment, not only Shamao was surprised and frightened. Everyone who saw the scene was surprised and frightened. The same is true for Zhen Qiansan, who is flying from a distance. All demon puppets cannot move on their own. In the past, people from the Moli family only released demon puppets refined from the bodies of people from the Zhen family once a year for the people from the Zhen family to see. But in this process, these demon puppets can only move under the command of people from the Formation family, and they show some characteristics that they are still alive and not dead. But like today, these demon puppets can move on their own without anyone directing them. Even able to speak. Zhen Qinzan, who was originally running towards him with great momentum, suddenly stagnated, with a look of disbelief in his eyes. All around him, the 4 great cauldrons were suspended, and various colors of brilliance emerged. These brilliance intertwined with each other, forming a tide of power. At this time, Zhen Qiansan was standing on this tide of power. Under the arch of the 4 great cauldrons, he stood in the void with white clothes and white hair. It made him look like a god descending to earth. But at this moment, his eyes fell on the puppets in the distance, and a terrifying wave surged in his mind, and there seemed to be roaring sounds. His eyes were full of incredulity. How is it possible? Being sacrificed and refined into a demon puppet, one day seeking resurrection and gaining true immortality is the hope of all members of the Jin family. Could it be that now, his father and other members of his ancestors have been resurrected? Jin Qinzan couldn't believe it. But I hope all this is true. Xiao Zhen, at this time, the demon puppet that spoke before called out again, "This is the conspiracy of the Magic Li family, the demon puppet, and everything else, are all the conspiracy of the Magic Li family. After we, the members of the Zhen family, are refined into demons, although we will not die and although our souls will always exist, we will suffer endless torture every moment. If not." Suddenly, in the middle of what this person was saying, his voice suddenly stopped. But the reason why he stopped speaking was not because he didn't want to speak anymore, but because his speaking ability, along with the speaking abilities of several other demons, were sealed by Chen Ronghuo at this moment. This is a range seal. In the next period of time, the speaking ability of the 4 second-level demon puppets and a 3rd-level demon puppet in front of him were sealed by Chen Ronghuo. Fortunately, Chen Ronghuo only sealed their speaking ability. So although he used part of the energy accumulated in the ancient books, it was still within his tolerance. Father. Seeing that the demon puppet in front of him was only halfway speaking, Zhen Qinzan immediately rushed to the puppet, driven by the tide of power under his feet. Seeing this scene, Chen Ronghuo did not stop him. Ho-san didn't intercept either. Zhen Qinzan grabbed the demon puppet's shoulders with both hands and burst into tears. "It's just that puppet, but he can only look at him and can't say a word. At the same time, he had several other demon puppets, but none of them knew why he suddenly couldn't speak or what happened. They even thought that there was something wrong with the secret technique they had temporarily resurrected. As for Chen Ronghuo, they didn't think about Chen Ronghuo at all. After all, the ability to seal away a person's ability to speak is really incredible. Behind him, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed. He has used ancient books to identify several demon puppets in this state. He knows that although their levels have not changed, the power they can use is pitiful. Even if they want to transmit messages through their souls, they can't. Kaka, Kaka. At this time, when Zhenkinzan and the demon puppet looked at each other, several other demon puppets also came to Zhenkinzan and surrounded Zhenkinzan. Originally, they wanted to explain some more things to Zhenkinzan. But in this situation, they can only skip this step and go directly to what they have already thought about. Boom! Suddenly, as these demon puppets surrounded Zhenkinzan, streaks of colorful auras suddenly bloomed from these demon puppets. After countless spiritual lights emerged from these demon puppets, they immediately wrapped around Zhenkinzan. Among them, Zhenkinzan's father was also included. This is... Zhenkinzan's expression suddenly changed. A bad premonition emerged from his heart. Blood inheritance aura. This is a secret technique that the 7th generation head of the Zhen family has painstakingly researched. You can use this secret technique to improve the talents of the descendants of the Jin family and pass on part of your own cultivation to your descendants. At the same time, after these spiritual lights emerged from these demon puppets, Chen Ronghuo's face changed slightly and he quickly used the identification technique of the ancient book. However, when he identified the properties of these spiritual lights, he was relieved. After being hit by the spiritual lights of inheritance, Zhenkinzan felt that his cultivation had soared significantly in a short period of time, but he did not feel happy. He looked at his father and other ancestors who had transformed into demon puppets, and the tears in his eyes could not be suppressed. Although there was no explanation, he could think of what it meant to make his cultivation soar significantly in a short period of time. At the same time, he could also clearly sense that as his cultivation improved more and more, the energy fluctuations in the bodies of his father and other demon puppets transformed by his ancestors became weaker and weaker. How could he not know what would happen when the energy fluctuations in his father and other ancestors became extremely weak? Plop! Suddenly, when Zhenkinzan was baptized by the spiritual light of blood inheritance, a sound of a heavy object falling to the ground suddenly came from a distance. Hearing the noise, Chen Ronghuo turned his head to see. Huanglin had already dealt with the old man in black robes, and was carrying the old man's body, walking towards here step by step. Huanglin, inheritor of the Mongadud Black Emperor Snake, mid-level 2. Loyalty, 99. Special Ability 1, Mongadud Black Emperor Snake's extreme snake body, strength, speed, and physical strength are extremely powerful among the same level. Special Ability 2, Shadow Control, Mongadud Black Emperor Snake is the Emperor walking in the shadows, the strongest stealth. Special Ability 3, Snake Emperor Seal, when using this seal, there is a chance to control the life of powerful snakes for your own use. Secret Technique 1, Shadow Snake Step. Secret Technique 2, Shadow Snake Bite. Chen Ronghuo had already identified Huanglin's attributes, and knew that with his strength, he could definitely deal with the old man. And Huanglin did not disappoint him. Boom! And just as Huanglin was walking over from a distance, as time passed, after Zhenkinzan received the baptism of a large amount of inherited spiritual light, an extremely strong energy fluctuation suddenly rose from his body. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 156. This is. Everyone was shocked when they felt the strong fluctuations coming from Zhenkinzan's body. Arraykinzan, 3rd level initial stage mental array warlock. Talent, Innate formation heart. Warlock qualification, 5. After Chen Ronghuo identified Chen Qinzhan's new attributes, his eyes were slightly awe-inspiring. The original formation Qinzhan was only at the late second level of cultivation and had only 4 points of qualifications. But after being baptized by the inherited spiritual light, he actually broke through to the third level. A third level cultivator can also be called the number 1 figure on the entire Beiwu Island. Just like Dai Genzi before him, he was still in the early stage of the third level, but he was in charge of one of the 13 important towns on Beiwu Island and was a veritable big shot. At the same time, Zhen Qinzhan's aptitude has reached 5 points, which is the same as Chang Sun Xingxin, and has also reached the limit of 5th level cultivation and below. However, just after Zhen Qinzhan's cultivation level broke through to the third level, the 5 demon puppets surrounding him all turned from reality to virtuality after their bodies stagnated. In the blink of an eye, it seemed to change into a dreamy bubble. Just like those people who had all their attributes wiped out by Chen Ronghuo with his left hand. However, the father of Zhen Qinzhan, who had transformed into a dreamy bubble, still opened his eyes and looked at Zhen Qinzhan. "Father!" Zhen Qinzhan stretched out his hands and tried to grab it, but failed. He could only look at his father. Looking at all the elders in his ancestors. Slowly disappeared before his eyes. Zhen Qinzhan gritted his teeth and breathed heavily. "If you don't become a god, you will eventually die." At this time, Chen Ronghuo suddenly stepped forward and said, "Even if you are lucky enough to use some special methods to delay time, there will be huge sequelae. Rather than doing this, it is better to be liberated." He was worried that Zhen Qinzhan would see something, so he didn't say that he had resurrected the demon puppets just now. Zhen Qinzhan took a deep breath and turned his head. He cast his gaze on Chen Ronghuo, and after a moment, he raised his hands and said, "Thank you Lord Chen for helping my father and other ancestors escape from the sea of suffering. I am grateful to Zhen Qinzhan." Obviously, he attributed the relief of his father and others to the few times Chen Ronghuo slapped several people with his left hand. When Chen Ronghuo heard this, his heart moved. He shook his head and said, "Brother Zhen, there is no need to be polite. Regarding this matter, I just did it casually. Brother Zhen is a talented person. If possible, I would not want to fight with him." Having said this, he paused and said, "A war just broke out here, and it won't take long for someone to come to investigate. If Brother Zhen doesn't mind, how about we go to Lushwiven town to have a chat with me after I'm done with things here?" "To Lushwiven town?" Listening to what Chen Ronghuo said, how could Zhen Qinzhan not understand what Chen Ronghuo meant? Chen Ronghuo's intention was obviously to gain his followers. He is a kind-hearted man. Chen Ronghuo was very kind to their family. If it weren't for Chen Ronghuo, he might never know the truth. His father and other ancestors also don't know how long they will suffer. Even this time, it was still unclear whether he could escape. However, his family had been assisting the demonic family for thousands of years, and yet they ended up like this, which really made him feel disheartened. This made him really don't know what to do when faced with Chen Ronghuo's invitation. At this time, after all the demon puppets disappeared into thin air, Shamao returned to his original naughty appearance. It silently ran to the pile of things lying on the ground from Shuejun's storage ring, looking at this and that. Suddenly, its eyes fell on a black and white array disc the size of a plate. The patterns on this array disc are like yin and yang fish. Only 2 fish eyes are missing. Looking at the formation disc, Shamao was curious and suddenly picked it up with his mouth, threw it into the air, and let it fall freely to the ground with a snap. Hearing the sudden movement, everyone turned around and focused their attention on Shamao and the black and white formation disc. The true disc of formations, remaining covers most of the formations in the world of gods, which can speed up the understanding of formations. But only those with the blood of the array family can use it. Only people from the array family who have a natural array heart can truly gain their recognition. This disc is a treasure inherited by the Jin family, but it was stolen by the third-generation leader of the magic family 700 years ago. However, he wanted to understand its secrets, but he never succeeded. This is. Zhenkinzan's eyes fell on the array disc, and his pupils suddenly shrank. How could he not recognize his family's inherited treasure? Not to mention this treasure, it is the treasure that almost everyone in their formation family wants to find the most. At the same time, for some unknown reason, after seeing this array disc, he immediately felt that this object was destined to him. Why, Brother Zhen knows this thing. At this time, Chen Ronghuo saw Zhenkinzan's expression and smiled slightly. Zhenkinzan took a deep breath. These things in front of him were all obtained by Chen Ronghuo from Shuijun, so they all belonged to Chen Ronghuo. If it had been any other time or someone else, he might not have taken it by force. But not to mention that he always felt that Chen Ronghuo was a bit mysterious. He couldn't do it just because Chen Ronghuo was so kind to their family. It seems that Brother Zhen probably knows this thing. In this case, this thing belongs to Brother Zhen. Just at this moment, as Chen Ronghuo's mind moved, the array disc that fell on the ground was caught by his soul power and flew in front of Zhenkinzan. This. Seeing the array disc hanging in front of him, Zhenkinzan's expression changed. He closed his eyes, and after a moment, he suddenly reached out and grabbed the array disc in front of him. At the same time, he opened his eyes and said to Chen Ronghuo, "Thank you, Lord." This time, he called Lord, not Lord Chen. After saying this, he added, "Black Tiger Town has been destroyed, and Zhenkinzan doesn't know where to stay next. If the Lord doesn't mind, I am willing to follow the Lord and go to Green Water Bay with the Lord." Zhenkinzan, loyalty 80. After hearing this, Chen Rong identified Zhenkinzan's loyalty and immediately smiled and said, "It is a blessing for me to get help from Brother Zhen. How can I despise him? It's just that the time and place are not suitable now. Later, I will let the entire Green Water Bay town welcome Brother Zhen to join." Zhenkinzan is already a third-level cultivator, and he is extremely talented. He also controls the rare treasure Zhendao Zhenpan. Chen Ronghuo, even if the entire Green Water Bay town welcomes Zhenkinzan for 30 days and 10 nights, it is not too much. Although Zhenkinzan's loyalty is only 80 points, far from being comparable to Huanglin and others, this is the first time the two have met. It is not easy for Zhenkinzan to have 80 points of loyalty to him, and Chen Ronghuo is also confident. Confident in himself, he will definitely be able to completely make Zhenkinzan return to his heart. Zhenkinzan temporarily suppressed the turmoil in his heart caused by what happened just now, and shook his head and said, "Lord, you are too polite. My matter is just a small matter. Now that Dai Zhenzi is dead, I wonder what plans the Lord will have next." He followed Chen Ronghuo to repay his gratitude. And now, he has obviously thrown away the past in a short time and officially assumed his own identity. Plans. Chen Ronghuo glanced in the direction of Tongluo town and said, "The night is long and dreams are many. The most urgent task now is to take Tongluo town before others react." Zhenkinzan heard this and immediately clasped his fists. "In this case, let me accompany the Lord to go there." Chen Ronghuo smiled and said, "Brother Zhen is willing to go, I will naturally be more than happy." Then he turned his head and looked at Ho-san and said, "Ho-san, you will lead first." But suddenly, when Chen Ronghuo was halfway through his words, his face suddenly changed. Because he looked over, he saw that Changsun Zhengzin, who was originally left far away by him, disappeared without a trace. Meow. But just when Chen Ronghuo was shocked, the fat cat suddenly called out. And when Chen Ronghuo looked at it, it stretched out its little paw and pointed at the wordless tomb mountain in the distance. Chen Ronghuo followed the fat cat's pointing and looked at the wordless tomb mountain. I don't know when, Changsun Zhengzin actually ran to the top of the Wuzatum mountain. Thanks to Moueshi for the 100 coin reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 157. Wait for me first. Seeing that Changsun Zhengzin actually ran to the top of the Wuzatum mountain, Chen Ronghuo's pupils shrank immediately. The next moment, he moved his body. Two huge black and red flame wings extended from his back. These two black and red flame wings were full of blazing power and waves of indescribable disaster power. Not to mention Huanglin and Hosan, even Zhenkinzan, whose cultivation had reached the 3rd level. After Chen Ronghuo summoned these two flame wings, he felt a breath and threat that made him a little palpitating. After the black and red flame wings were summoned by Chen Ronghuo immediately flapped his wings and flew straight to the top of the Wuzatum mountain in the distance. Natural Disaster Demon Wings. Auxiliary secret technique, mainly used to enhance the power of other flame secret techniques and curse secret techniques. Can also be used for flying. This secret technique is similar to the red sand phantom wings used by Han Bai. At the same time, this is also one of the several secret techniques that Chen Ronghuo has mastered in the past year. Although this secret technique is not mainly used for flying, the flying speed is not particularly fast. But after mastering this secret technique, Chen Ronghuo was still excited for a long time. Flying without external force, relying only on oneself, this is definitely one of the goals that most humans dream of. Huanglin and Zhenkinzan did not move when they heard Chen Ronghuo told them to wait here. However, when Fat Cat saw Chen Ronghuo flying away, he quickly picked up Shuejun's storage ring, put away a lot of things on the ground, and quickly caught up with Chen Ronghuo. Whoosh! With his wings flapping, Chen Ronghuo seemed to have turned into a black and red bird of disaster, and his speed soared. In his eyes, Changsun Zhengzin is definitely as important as Zhenkinzan, who has reached the 3rd level of cultivation and has great talent and potential. A moment later, he flew to the top of the Wuzatum mountain. In front of Changsun Zhengzin. And in the process, he released the ability of several magic puppets that had just been sealed with ancient books to speak. When people speak, it is related to the vocal cords and tongue. But just now, Chen Ronghuo used the ancient book to seal the ability of the magic puppets to speak, but in the end, he only got a few special runes and a few strange energies. After releasing these, he thought about it and did not use the natural disaster magic flame to completely destroy it, but stretched out his left hand and touched it. Then he unexpectedly discovered that he had touched all these things into phantoms in just a short time, and touched the attributes inside into the attribute space. It is a good thing to keep these things related to Zhenkinzan's father and others. When Chen Ronghuo came to the top of the Wuzatum mountain, Changsun Zhengzin was sitting on a stone on the mountain, looking at the wordless tombstones below. 200 years ago, he had been here. That time, MaleProtagonist brought him here. At that time, he only thought that MaleProtagonist was curious about this place. But he never thought that this was the cemetery of the Mole family. And the blood flowing in MaleProtagonist's body was actually the blood of the Mole family that he had destroyed. The stone he was sitting on at this time was the stone he and MaleProtagonist had sat on together. Sitting on this stone, he took out an iron box from his arms, and after opening it, there was a layer of ashes inside. He threw it into the wind, and the ashes were blown away by the breeze. This is MaleProtagonist's ashes. As if blinded by the ashes, Changsun Zhengzin's eyes were filled with tears in an instant. Why? Why did you do this? You had so many opportunities before, but you didn't do it. Why did you have to give me this knife at the last moment of my life? You said you would come here again after you die, and I will satisfy you. But why don't you tell me why you did this? Chang Sun Zhengzin touched the stone under him. At the bottom of the stone, 200 years ago, his and MaleProtagonist's names were engraved. Time. Maybe time can really smooth everything out. After 200 years of wind and rain, this stone still exists. But how could those two shallow names at the beginning? Chang Sun Zhengzin looked into the distance and ignored Chen Ronghuo who flew beside him. At this time, Chen Ronghuo also frowned and looked at Chang Sun Zhengzin without speaking. But at this moment, Chang Sun Zhengzin's body shook suddenly. When his hand touched the stone under him, he suddenly touched two lines of very deep marks. Even without looking, he knew what these two lines of very deep marks were engraved with. Those were the names of him and MaleProtagonist. But he clearly remembered that the names he engraved here in the past 200 years were definitely not so deep. Is it you? Have you come back by yourself? It must be. In recent years, you have left Beiwu City every year. I asked you, but you didn't tell me where you went. You must have come here, right? Chang Sun Zhengzin murmured. At this moment, he had no trace of the power of the Earl of Beiwu. Instead, he looked like a young man who had just received a letter from his goddess. He repeatedly touched the mark under the stone with his hands, and his eyes became brighter and brighter. 5 times. You left White Mist City 5 times in total. The writing under the stone has been repeatedly carved 5 times. I knew you couldn't have no feelings for me. At this moment, Chang Sun Zhengzin stroked the stone under him again and again. And with these strokes, his feelings for MaleProtagonist finally reached a critical point in a short time. The stone engraved with the names of Chang Sun Zhengzin and MaleProtagonist came here once a year soon after learning of Chang Sun Zhengzin's life, and deepened the name of Chang Sun Zhengzin and his own name that he had carved in the past. He planned to wait until he cast the love flower spell with his life, and then led Chang Sun Zhengzin here to try to awaken Chang Sun Zhengzin's deep feelings for him in the past. Awesome woman. When Chen Ronghuo identified the stone under Chang Sun Zhengzin, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Boom. At the same time, after Chang Sun Zhengzin found out that MaleProtagonist did not have no feelings for him, he really recalled the past with MaleProtagonist in his heart. Especially the scenes of the two coming here 200 years ago. As all these scenes emerged from his mind, a white flower in his soul sea seemed to have finally absorbed enough nutrients and quietly bloomed. As the flower bloomed, Chang Sun Zhengzin's face finally showed a smile for the first time after his cultivation was sealed for a year. And at this moment, when the white flower bloomed in Chang Sun Zhengzin's soul sea, a beautiful woman in a red dress suddenly walked out of the pistil of the white flower. The woman grew from small to large, walked out of Chang Sun Zhengzin's soul sea in an instant, and then appeared in an illusory state and came to him, landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 158. When the love flower bloomed and the love flower curse was lifted, Chang Sun Zhengzin's sealed cultivation was also lifted. He was originally a 4th level cultivator. Because the love flower curse absorbed a lot of his cultivation, his current cultivation is only at the peak of the 3rd level. But even so, he can still be called a strong man on Beiwu Island. At least here, Zhenkinzan, who had just broken through to the 3rd level, is definitely a small witch compared to him. At the same time, after his cultivation was unsealed, Chang Sun Zhengzin also understood why MaleProtagonist did this. After understanding all this, his feelings for MaleProtagonist reached the peak. And at this moment, the many white flowers in his soul sea began to sway, absorbing many distracting thoughts in his heart. So that he only had that burning emotion for MaleProtagonist in his heart. All other thoughts were hard to survive. Chang Sun Zhengzin burst into tears. Until the illusory woman in red quietly walked out of the pistil of the white flower. When she appeared in front of him, he stood up suddenly after a moment of shock and reached out to grab the woman. But this grab, of course, grabbed nothing. MaleProtagonist's soul shadow, formed by the soul after the dissipation of MO-Licking's life, and a wisp of obsession, without intelligence, only a little attachment to Chang Soon's Inkson. It can exist for 3 minutes. You can increase its existence time and a little intelligence by integrating it into the soul origin, so that it can remember a little of the past. But it can only survive for 1 month. Afterwards, Chang Soon's Inkson needs to nourish it with the love flower to survive longer. But because the effect of the love flower absorbing distracting thoughts is limited, you also need to integrate the dustless state of mind into Chang Soon's Inkson's body to keep MO-Licking's soul shadow. Not far away, Chen Ronghuo frowned after finding out the message of MO-Licking's soul shadow. He had previously taken some of the soul origin from the bodies of the prisoners in Greenwater Baytown. Now he still had some in his hand. He just thought about it, but did not act immediately, but waited again. Chang Soon Zhengzin stretched out his hand to grab the soul of MO-Licking, but after grabbing nothing, he was stunned. Then he looked at the familiar woman in front of him and the love in her eyes, and his heart was immediately stirred, mixed with bitterness, heartache, and other emotions. At this time, he could already sense that his cultivation speed had increased a lot after breaking through the love flower curse. With such a cultivation speed, this time, he might have been able to break through to become a 5th level cultivator before his life came, and his lifespan would be greatly increased. But he would rather not have such a speed of cultivation. Would rather never break through the 5th level than be separated from MO-Licking. He looked at the phantom-like soul of MO-Licking in front of him, and looked at the soul that showed attachment to him, but the shadow was getting fainter and fainter, as if it would disappear completely in a short time, and his tears were like rain. Chen Ronghuo stood not far away. He watched the scene quietly and shook his head in his heart. It was only when he saw that 3 minutes were about to pass and MO-Licking's soul was about to disappear completely that he suddenly stepped forward, stretched out his left hand, and gently touched MO-Licking's soul. You! Chang Sun Zhengzin looked up suddenly. But before he could get angry, he saw that with Chen Ronghuo's touch, MO-Licking's soul was actually solidified quickly. After MO-Licking's soul solidified a lot, his eyes, which originally only had attachment, suddenly became more lively. Then, as if she remembered something, she looked at Chang Soon Zhengzin in front of her, suddenly stepped forward, and reached out to touch Chang Soon Zhengzin's face. But this touch, also touched nothing. Love. Chang Soon Zhengzin's eyes showed strong excitement. Hearing his call, MO-Licking's soul looked at him. After a moment, she seemed to suddenly understand something, and shook her head with a wry smile at Chang Soon Zhengzin. At this time, Chang Soon Zhengzin had also discovered that although MO-Licking's soul was much more solid than before, her soul was still dissipating every moment. After discovering this, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Chen Ronghuo. You don't need to look at me. Seeing Chang Soon Zhengzin looking at him, Chen Ronghuo shook his head and said, I can only help her once, so that she can exist for another month. If you want her to exist longer, you can try to take her into the love flower in your soul sea and use the love flower to nourish her. Use the love flower to nourish? After hearing what Chen Ronghuo said, Chang Soon Zhengzin's heart moved, and he immediately began to try to activate the love flower in his soul sea. As he activated it, the soul flower released a strange suction force, sucking the soul shadow of MO-Licking back into the pistil of the love flower. After the soul shadow of MO-Licking returned to the pistil of the love flower, Chang Soon Zhengzin carefully sensed it and found that its dissipation speed had indeed slowed down a lot, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. After doing all this, he raised his head and looked at Chen Ronghuo and said, Thank you for your help just now. Although he was thanking, his words were not very enthusiastic. Some were just almost indifferent. Chen Ronghuo didn't care about this. He had already understood Chang Soon Zhengzin's current state through ancient books. Knowing that at this time, apart from the love for magic rituals, other distracting thoughts in Chang Soon Zhengzin's heart would not disappear completely, but they were extremely difficult to retain. This state is exactly what he wants. Because through the appraisal of ancient books, he already knew that Chang Soon Zhengzin at this time could already match Wuchen's state of mind. But what makes him confused and entangled is that he can give Wuchen's state of mind to his grandson Zhengzin. But he still hasn't figured out how to make Chang Soon obey his orders in the future. After thinking for a while, he said, I know something about the love flower spell. If you include her in your love flower and nurture her, you can increase the time of her existence. But this method still cannot keep him forever. If you want to keep her forever, there is only one way. What can I do? Chang Soon Zhengzin's eyes suddenly lit up. This method requires too much price, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it. Chen Ronghuo pondered for a moment and said, well, I still have some things to deal with next. If you are willing, you can come with me. I will tell you the method after I finish handling the matter, and then you can decide whether to do it or not. Now that Chang Soon Zhengzin's cultivation has been restored, it would definitely be dangerous if Chang Soon Zhengzin had any ill will towards him and wanted to force him to hand over the method to keep the magic gift love alive. But no matter what, Chang Soon Zhengzin is a huge opportunity for him. This risk is still worth taking. The most important thing is that now, he is not completely powerless against Chang Soon Zhengzin. Even if Chang Soon Zhengzin had any ill intentions towards him, he would subdue him first and would not be able to kill him directly. In this case, he can use the ancient book to seal Chang Soon Zhengzin, and then use the newly conquered formation Qinzan to remove Chang Soon Zhengzin. With the energy accumulated in ancient books for a year, it is impossible to seal the renewal of the eldest grandson for too long, but it is still no problem if it is only sealed for a moment. But against a third-level cultivator like Qian San, 1 moment is enough. Good. Chang Soon Zhengzin thought for a moment and then agreed. Although he no longer has distracting thoughts, it does not mean that his wisdom has declined. With his eyesight, he could tell Chen Ronghuo's cultivation level at a glance. But the mystery displayed by Chen Ronghuo made him dare not force Chen Ronghuo. Boom. Just when Chen Ronghuo heard that Chang Soon Zhengzin agreed, Chen Ronghuo was not overjoyed. His ears suddenly moved and he heard roars coming from a very far away direction. This sound. Chen Ronghuo frowned, turned his head, and looked in the direction of the sound, his eyes flashing with light. If you listen to these huge roars from a close distance, they will definitely be no less loud than the sound they made just now when they were fighting in Black Tiger Town. Iron-blooded city. After a while, Chen Ronghuo had determined that these huge sounds were coming from the direction of the Iron Blood Town. Zhou Yuanhua. Then something moved in his mind, and he thought of what Huang Lin had mentioned to him not long ago. Tai Fei's Hang from the Iron-blooded town fought with Lu Wenbo from the Mentang town, and his hands were seriously injured. In addition, during the battle between the two, there were also news of the existence of Zhou Yuanhua's shadow. Will the masters of 2 important towns die today? After thinking about it, Chen Ronghuo shook his head. If, as he thought, the iron-blooded town was going to dissipate today, even he could not imagine how big the shock this day would be. The situation on the entire Beiwu Island may change as a result. Thanks to the 2 book friends Little ZZG Killing God and Suang for their 500 coin reward landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chao Ji Dupang. Chapter 159. The battle in Black Tiger Town ended one after another, and all the citizens of Black Tiger Town rushed to escape outside Black Tiger Town. No ordinary townspeople know what happened in Black Tiger Town. Even the warriors of the Black Tiger Town guards did not dare to approach the aftermath of the battle with the third-level practitioners. Therefore, none of these people knew what happened in Black Tiger Town in the short period of time. What everyone knows is that a powerful enemy has arrived in Black Tiger Town. But no one knows who this enemy is. Chen Ronghuo and Chang Soon Zhengzin flew down from Wuzatum Mountain, and first came to the Lord's mansion in Black Tiger Town, in front of the statue of Lord Shuejun. During this process, Shamao has been following Chen Ronghuo. Boom boom boom. After arriving here, it immediately enlarged its body and slapped the statue of Xuejun with one claw after another. Chen Ronghuo walked to Xuejun's lord statue and placed his left hand on it. On the side, Changsun Zhengzin watched the scene expressionlessly. Snap! After a while, Changsun Zhengzin seemed to be impatient with the waiting. He suddenly stepped forward and slapped the statue of the Lord with his palm. When this palm fell, the statue of the Lord immediately clicked, and countless cracks were densely packed from top to bottom. And just when Xuejun's Lord statue cracked, there was also a trace of purple meaning on Chen Ronghuo's left hand, an undetectable flash. Just like when he was in Greenwater Bay Town, he once again found a divine attribute from the Lord's statue. At the same time, when he figured out this attribute, he also used his noble mark to collect all the power of faith that Black Tiger Town had accumulated for many years. Thank you. Chen Ronghuo thanked Changsun Zhengzin. However, Changsun Zhengzin just nodded lightly and said nothing. Chen Ronghuo shook his head, and then gathered with Changsun Zhengzin, Huanglin, and Zhenkinzan. The fat cat, on the other hand, made a detour under his command. The third-level demon puppet that had fought with Dai Zhenzi before, as well as Dai Zhenzi's corpse, Shen Luyang's corpse, the corpse of the zombie warlock Wangu, and the zombie capable of earth escape that was smashed to death in the ground, all stored away with Xuejun's storage ring. After Shamao finished doing this, Chen Ronghuo looked at Xuejun's body again. At this time, Xuejun's body was divided into 4 parts. His head fell to the ground. Other parts are also separated by a short distance. After Xuejun died, although Zhenkinzan was still full of hatred when looking at him, he did not vent his anger on his body. Xuejun, also known as the Magic Ceremony Army. Moon Warlock. Warlock qualification, 3. Dead. After taking a look at Xuejun's body, Chen Ronghuo's heart moved and he wanted to put away Xuejun's body as well. Because of the superpower of his left hand, he wanted to collect anything that was slightly special, and then slowly explore its attributes. Buzz. But just as he was thinking this, a purple-black beam of light suddenly fell from the void and rolled over Xuejun's body. Then, Xuejun's body was rolled up, and after a flash, it landed on the top of Wuzitum Mountain in the distance. Then the purple-black beam of light suddenly emitted and transformed into a huge light curtain, covering the entire wordless tomb mountain. This purple-black light curtain is extremely rich in color. Once covered by it, everything on the wordless tomb mountain was covered up. Boundary of the gods, a barrier formed by the gods using their divine power to restrain a trace of the original power of the black demon star. The barrier can exist for 298 years and 303 days. Prior to this, any attempt to destroy the barrier would be warned and even punished by the gods. When Chen Ronghuo used ancient books to identify the properties of the light curtain, his pupils suddenly shrank. This is the first time he has seen the actions of the gods since he came to this world. But he still didn't know the purpose of the gods in the world of gods. He didn't know why they created the login crystal, and why they created such a barrier to involve the dead Xuejun. But Chen Ronghuo knew that the gods in this world were not good gods. For these gods, if it were not of great benefit to them, they would definitely not take all the precautions to prepare for this. But what purpose and plan these gods have is not something he can figure out now. Beside Chen Ronghuo, Changsun Zhengzin looked at the light curtain on Wuzitum Mountain and frowned, as if he thought of something. But his frowning expression just flashed and disappeared from his face, so that Chen Ronghuo couldn't even see it. As for the others, they don't even know what happened. Lord, this is... After Xuejun's body was swept away by the purple-black beam, Huanglin and Hosan immediately blocked Chen Ronghuo until they discovered that the beam only swept away Xuejun's body and did not give it to them. When there was danger, the two of them looked at Chen Ronghuo. You don't have to worry about this, this is what the gods did. Seeing the two of them, Chen Ronghuo shook his head. God. After hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Huanglin, Hosan, and Zhenkinzan all showed expressions of bewilderment. I don't know how Xuejun's body could be related to the gods. At the same time, what all of them didn't know was that just after the purple-black light curtain was formed, Xuejun's body, which had been broken into 4 parts, was put back together in the light curtain and restored to its original shape. However, after Xuejun's body was restored to its original state, his skin was covered with a lot of strange black lines. At the same time, his eyes would only occasionally flash a glimmer of light. Most of the other time, he was either stupid or full of violence. In addition, at this moment, a lot of black air came out of the tombs next to the tombstones without words on the wordless tomb mountain. Countless black air lingered, as if a group of demons were dancing wildly, which was frightening. Let's go. After taking another look at the wordless tomb mountain, Chen Ronghuo made the fat cat bigger and then got on the fat cat's body. Lord, at this time, Zhenkinzan suddenly reminded, there is another treasure house in Black Tiger Town. There are no precious treasures in it, but there are many ordinary treasures. Treasures? Chen Ronghuo shook his head and said, just some ordinary treasures. We have been delayed for too long. The most important thing now is to rush to Tongluo Town as soon as possible. Before others can react, we must plunder the power of faith in Tongluo Town and their treasure house. Yes. Zhenkinzan nodded. He was not unhappy that Chen Ronghuo rejected him. Instead, he felt that Chen Ronghuo was indeed decisive enough. Sometimes, if you want everything, you will get nothing in the end. In contrast, only those who know how to make choices can make it to the end and get the greatest benefits. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Immediately, Chen Ronghuo led a group of people and rushed to Tongluo Town quickly. Swoosh. And not long after they left, several people rushed to Haihu Town one after another. Thanks to Please Call Me Dongfang for the 500 coin reward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 160. Before leaving Black Tiger Town, Chen Ronghuo used the sealing ability of the ancient book to seal all the auras in a large area near the wordless tomb mountain. Following him, Zhang Sunxingzin, Zhenkinzan, Huanglin and others flew towards the important town of Tongluo. Speaking of flying, it was mainly because Chang Sun renewed his ability to control the air. Then Zhenqian San summoned 4 large cauldrons and formed a tide of power, carrying Chen Ronghuo, Huanglin, Hosan, and Shamao. After Zhenkinzan's cultivation reaches the 3rd level, even if he is flying with a few people, the speed is much faster than Chen Ronghuo and others running by themselves. And just as a few people were flying towards Tongluo Town. Black Tiger Town. A figure wearing a white robe, from far to near, carrying the hunting gang Wind, flew over from the east. Some 2nd level warlocks can also use certain methods to fly, but they are definitely not that fast. Judging from the speed at which this figure appears, it is obvious that it is a 3rd level cultivator. When this figure flew above Black Tiger Town, his eyes swept over it, and at first sight he saw the purple-black light curtain on Wuzatum Mountain. Seeing this light curtain, he frowned, but he seemed to have seen this thing before. He didn't show too much curiosity, but his eyebrows frowned more tightly. At this time, Black Tiger Town was already deserted. He stood in the air and looked around. He could see figures one after another, all of them dragging their families with them and fleeing into the distance. With a thought in his mind, he was ready to arrest someone to see if he could find out what happened here just now. Whoosh! But before he could take action, suddenly, 2 more figures flew in from a distance. Of these 2 figures, one was flying from a southerly direction, and the other was flying from a northerly direction. Seeing these two figures, the man in white robe frowned and stopped. Brother Wen at this time, a figure coming from the south with a big knife on his back looked at the white-robed man and said, "You came too late. Dai Genzi hasn't rushed over yet, but you came over first." Dai Genzi? Humph, the man in white robe was in charge of the Tongluo town. When Jingluo, the leader of the Yuanhe town, heard the words and snorted coldly. He looked at the figure carrying a big sword and said, "Nai Quangdao, our two towns have already the alliance lasted for 1 year. Not long ago, Dai Genzi started a war with me for no reason, but you didn't come to help me. I don't know what your intentions were?" The figure with a big sword on his back is none other than Nai Quangdao, the leader of the Quangdao stronghold in the southernmost part of Beiwu Island. Brother Wen misunderstood, "What can I do?" Nai Quangdao shook his head and said, "I sense the battle between you and Dai Genzi. But you also know that in the lake next to our town, a huge sea monster came from nowhere during this period. When you and Dai Genzi were fighting, I was dealing with that sea monster and I really couldn't rush over to help you." Whoosh! While the two were talking, the figure coming from the north also arrived. Seeing this person coming, Wen Jingluo and Nai Quangdao both stopped talking. This figure was wearing a purple robe. What is particularly eye-catching is that there is a black mole between his eyebrows, like a vertical eye. Long Fi Feng after the figure stopped, Wen Jingluo said solemnly, "I haven't seen you for a long time. I didn't expect you to be here this time." This man wearing a purple robe, with eyes between his brows, is Long Fi Feng, the second brother of Long Fi Hung, the lord of Longtan Town, one of the 3 most powerful towns on Beiwu Island. The location of the important town of Longtan is west of the center of Beiwu Island. It is close to the 2 important towns of Tongluo Town and Iron Blood Town. There is no way. Long Fi Feng nodded lightly, "The situation on Beiwu Island is too chaotic now, so my eldest brother must stay at home." Following him, he glanced at Wen Jingluo and asked, "Brother Long, you came early, do you know what happened here?" Judging from the previous movements, there are probably practitioners of the same level as us who just fought here. It's just that this was originally supposed to be the territory of Black Tiger Town. Black Tiger Town shouldn't have such a strong power, right? Besides. Speaking of this, Long Fi Feng's tone became slightly solemn and said, "The gods actually created a barrier here. It seems that the things involved here should be quite big. Brother Long, do you have any news about this matter? Barriers like this have appeared on Beiwu Island in the past few years. No one knows what this barrier does. However, some people have learned through exploration that similar barriers have appeared in recent years not only on Beiwu Island, but also on the entire Jado Snake Islands, and even further afield. And every time such a barrier appears, it means that this place, in the region it belongs to, hides a relatively big secret." Hearing Long Fi Feng's words, Wen Jingluo shook his head and said, "I'm just a little earlier than you. When I came over, I only saw these and nothing else. However, Dai Genzi is so close to here, and there is something wrong with him not showing up after such a long time. Do you think this scene has something to do with him? Is it related to Dai Genzi?" After hearing Wen Jingluo's words, Nai Quangdao and Long Fi Feng both looked thoughtful. As long as Dai Genzi heard the noise like before, it would be impossible to pretend that he didn't hear anything. But after such a long time, Dai Genzi still hasn't arrived. No matter how you think about it, it's a bit suspicious. Thinking of this, Long Fi Feng suddenly made a mark, as if he was performing some secret technique. But after a moment, he sneered, "Interesting, the aura here seems to have been dealt with by someone. No aura is left." "No aura is left," Wen Jingluo frowned and said, "It seems that most of the townspeople don't know what happened just now. Brother Long, Brother Nai, I want to go to Tongluo Town. I wonder if you two are willing to go with me." "It's okay to go together." The two nodded at the same time. Then the three of them reached an agreement and quickly flew to Tongluo town. During the flight, Long Fifeng said, "After the movement here just now, the sound of a third-level cultivator fighting was heard from the direction of Taixu town. I don't know what happened there again." Wen Jingluo and Naiquangdao also shook their heads when they heard this. The fluctuations of the third-level cultivator fighting are enough to be transmitted hundreds of miles away and sensed by ordinary people. For those of the same level, they can sense some movement from hundreds of miles away. They are also curious about what happened in Taixu town. There are actually third-level practitioners fighting there. It's just that it's a little far away from them. Their top priority now is to figure out the situation here first. Just as they speeded up to Tongluo Bay town, they wanted to see why Dai Genzi hadn't come for so long. And whether this matter was related to Dai Genzi. Chen Ronghuo and his party had already arrived at the scope of Tongluo town. At the same time, during this process, Chen Ronghuo also found a big river. The large amount of breath that had just been sealed in Haihu town was released into the river. The scope of Tongluo town is as large as 5 or 6 green water bay towns. The huge city wall is far beyond the green water bay town. However, when Chen Ronghuo and his party arrived at Tongluo town was already in a mess. It seemed that someone had made a scene here not long ago. Looking down from the sky, the whole town was noisy. Even the guards on the city wall had disappeared. Boom boom boom. At the same time, there were bursts of loud noises coming from the center of the town. Lord, hearing this noise, Zhen Qinzhan's face changed, and he quickly reacted and said, "The Lord has fallen, and the Lord's statue will also become dim after a period of time." Tongluo town is so chaotic, most people have discovered that Dai Genzi has died, and are attacking the Lord's statue to seize the power of faith. The power of faith can only be preserved by nobles through the noble mark. But not being able to preserve it does not mean that it cannot be used on the spot and refined. Thanks to book friend 201709152135042223 for the 500 coin reward, Dong for the 200 coin reward, and Moyo Envoy for the 100 coin reward. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 161. The three of them, Chen Ronghuo, rushed to the territory of Tongluo town. When I heard the sounds of attacks on the Lord's statue coming from inside. Wen Jingluo, Naiquangdao, and Long Fifeng were also flying when they heard a hint of movement. What's going on? There's trouble in Tongluo town. What is Dai Genzi doing? Even a second-level cultivator can't suppress him. Is he dead? After being stunned for a moment, the three of them quickly sped up. Based on the volume of the sound, they could tell that the person who made the noise should only be a second-level cultivator. Even among second-level cultivators, they are not very powerful. A practitioner of this level, with Dai Genzi's strength, should not be able to give him a chance to cause trouble. Brother Zhen, use your secret technique to cover our appearance, and we will go directly. At this time, after Chen Ronghuo heard the movement in Tongluo town, he immediately gave orders to Qian-san. Good. Jing Qinzhan agreed. Then the big cauldron hanging to the north of his body and the big cauldron hanging to the west of him erupted with waves of water and strong winds. The water waves echoed with the strong wind, turning into billowing white mist in the blink of an eye, covering the figures of several people. Following Zhen Qinzhan, he drove the big cauldron, carrying the billowing white mist, carrying Chen Ronghuo and others. Amidst the roar like a thunderstorm, it reached the sky above the Lord's mansion in the center of Tongluo town. At this time, in the square in front of the Lord's mansion in Tongluo town, several figures were attacking Dai Genzi's Lord's statue together. Chen Fangbin, second-level mid-level practitioner, martial arts qualification 2, deputy commander of Tongluo town. Gao Bing, early stage 2 cultivator, golden warlock qualification 2, master of the warlock hall in Tongluo town. Highlight. When Chen Ronghuo fell, he immediately identified the attributes of these people. Dai Genzi is a viscount and the lord of an important town. In terms of sturdiness, his lord statue is definitely far superior to Chen Ronghuo's lord statue. At this time, those who attacked the statue of Lord Dai Genzi were only second-level practitioners. And they are all practitioners in the early and middle stages of the second level. With the strength of these people, even if they continuously attack Dai Genzi's lord statue, after such a long time, there is still not even a single crack. Boom! And just when they were extremely anxious, Chen Ronghuo and his party appeared above several people with roaring wind and thunder. The huge shadow covered them, causing the figures of several people to freeze. They looked up quickly. However, as far as the eye could see, all that could be seen was the dense white mist, as well as a few impressive figures faintly revealed in the mist. In an instant, several people felt as if they had fallen into an ice cave and held their breath. Dai Genzi died suddenly. Naturally, they didn't know that the important town of Tongluo might soon face a formidable enemy. It's just that they can't restrain their inner greed. I want to smash Dai Genzi's lord statue before the enemy comes. Loot the large amount of power of faith accumulated in the lord statue, and then find a way to escape. But now, apparently before they could finish the matter, Dai Genzi's murderer had already arrived. Several people spoke. Call. But before they could finish their words, when Chen Ronghuo landed and stepped on his feet, he activated the secret flame to sweep across, sending the billowing black and red fire light through the white mist with a piercing sound. It suddenly fell on the people below. Ah! Miserable howls sounded, and these people were caught off guard and burned to ashes by Chen Ronghuo's natural disaster flames. Only a few black and red illusory skulls were left, which were taken into Chen Ronghuo's body. In the eyes of these people, Chen Ronghuo and others are high-ranking figures. He is a third-level cultivator. Facing cultivators of this level, they naturally knew that running away was useless. So they thought of escaping with their lives by begging for mercy. But they never expected that after seeing them, Chen Ronghuo would attack them without saying a word. Facing the tyrannical attack of the natural disaster demon flames, if they couldn't defend themselves, how could they withstand it? Call. After these people died, Zhen Qinzan immediately controlled the cauldron and dropped it. Fa Mao, give Huanglin the storage ring. Huanglin, take the storage ring and go to the treasure house in Tongluo town to have a look. After landing, Chen Ronghuo immediately ordered. Yes. Upon hearing this, Huanglin agreed and looked at Shamao. Meow. Shamao was a little reluctant. But under Chen Ronghuo's gaze, it still raised its paw and threw the storage ring to Huanglin. Huanglin took the storage ring and quickly disappeared with extremely strange steps, like a ghost. Huanglin is the inheritor of the Mongadu Black Emperor Snake, the King of Shadows, the best at stealth and assassination. If we just talk about restraining his aura and hiding his figure, even Zhen Qiansan, who has broken through to the third level, may not be Huanglin's opponent. Seeing Huanglin disappear, Zhen Qinzan's eyes were slightly awe-inspiring. Previously, Huanglin, with his mid-second level cultivation, killed Lu Man, a dead soldier of the Moli family who was left behind by Xue Jun's father in Black Tiger Town, and late second-level cultivator Lu Man, in a short period of time. Caught his attention. At this time, he saw the speed and strange body movements displayed by Huanglin, and immediately improved his evaluation of Huanglin in his heart. As for Changsun Zhengzin, who was also a third-level cultivator like him, let alone. Even if he just stood beside him, he could feel the pressure emanating from Changsun Zhengzin. At the same time, he was also speculating about the relationship between Changsun Zhengzin and Chen Ronghuo. Although Ho San, who had fought with him before, had a weaker cultivation, he could tell from the strength he showed in the previous battle that Ho San was not an ordinary person. Thinking that these people were all Chen Ronghuo's men, he suddenly had more expectations for the future. Compared with Chen Ronghuo, Xuanhuan was simply too much worse. At this time, after Huang Lin left, Chen Ronghuo glanced at Dai Genzi's Lord statue, suddenly stepped forward 2 steps, and put his left hand on it and touched it. Then he turned around and said, "Brother Zhen, I'll have to trouble you for Dai Genzi's Lord statue." "Okay." Zhen Qinzan agreed. He immediately raised his hand and moved all 4 cauldrons, making them like 4-color meteors, with a huge whistling sound, one after another, smashing towards Dai Genzi's Lord statue. Boom 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 boom. The loud noises continued and spread in all directions. And it was suddenly many times louder than the noises made by those people before. Chen Ronghuo did not seal the huge noise here, because it would probably be too late to seal it at this time. And just when Zhen Qinzan took action, Wen Jingluo, Nai Quangdao, and Long Fifeng, who were speeding here, were all shocked when they heard the huge sound coming from Tongluo town. 3rd level cultivator. Another 3rd level cultivator took action in Tongluo town. Dai Genzi would not really die, right? Brother Long, let's go faster. Thinking so, the 3 of them sped up again. Today's events were too chaotic. It was too shocking, they had to find out the truth. Boom boom boom. At this time, after Zhen Qinzan attacked Dai Genzi's Lord statue for a while, Chang Sun Zhengzin on the side seemed to be impatient again. Suddenly, he took a step forward, raised his palm and joined the ranks of attacking the Lord statue. His palm speed and palm power were extremely fast. He attacked Dai Genzi's Lord statue one by one, and Zhen Qinzan's eyebrows jumped. He once again guessed in his heart, who is this person? Why has such a powerful strength, but he has never heard of it? But no matter how he thought, he couldn't imagine when there was such a strong man in Beiwu Island. Crack! At this moment, under the continuous bombardment of the 2, Dai Genzi's Lord statue finally cracked. When these cracks appeared, Chen Ronghuo touched the palm of the Lord statue, and several imperceptible purple lights flashed in succession. At the same time, the rolling faith power accumulated in Tongluo town for many years was also absorbed by him into his noble mark at this moment. There is a limit to the faith power that the noble mark can absorb. After absorbing so much faith power, Chen Ronghuo even felt that his noble mark seemed to have a sense of expansion. A lot of money. This time he went out, it can be said that he made a lot of money. Even with the faith power he gained this time, he estimated that it would not be impossible for him to be promoted to Viscount now. Today must rise, the next chapter is 12 noon. Thanks to book friend 201702121643296993 for the 100 coin reward.